Some new names and some familiar ones are the subject of the latest trove of Epstein files released by the Justice Department. Friday's drop has over 3 million pages of documents, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. Included in the trove are references to President Trump, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Elon Musk, and other prominent people. But at this time, there is no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing by any of those mentioned, just compromised timelines regarding if and when associated individuals actually distance themselves from the disgraced pedophile. The latest release is overdue as the DOJ failed to meet the legally required date to release all of the Epstein files on December 19th, 2025. The DOJ claims it didn't meet the deadline because it was making sure to protect victims and survivors outlined in the documents. However, they didn't do such a good job. Some of the latest documents actually reveal names and other identifying details of Epstein's known survivors. Meanwhile, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche signaled on Friday that this release will likely be the final batch of Epstein documents.
Today's release marks the end of a very comprehensive document identification and review process to ensure transparency to the American people and compliance with the Act.
Joining our conversations is Congressman Robert Garcia, who is the ranking member of the Oversight Committee. So, Congressman, in a statement, you note that there is still a lot more to be released, writing, quote, Trump and the Department of Justice have now made it clear that they intend to withhold roughly 50% of the Epstein files while claiming to have fully complied with the law. This is outrageous and incredibly concerning. But what can you do from your perch on oversight to force real accountability?
Well, we're going to force real accountability, but so is the American public. I mean, no one here is buying what Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are trying to sell to the American public. So they're only going to release half of the Epstein files, highly redacted. They're going to put in files that has Donald Trump and then remove them and then put them back. They're going to somehow divert people's attention by causing all sorts of other chaos across the country. They're going to be putting the names of victims and survivors in jeopardy. And then they're going to try to withhold critical information around interagency discussions or information that might have anything to do with current investigation. I think we have to remind the Department of Justice that there are two legal efforts here. There's a transparency law that passed, which they may try to flout. But there's a subpoena that's been in place since the summer that does not include any provisions about withholding any documents for investigations or for interagency conversations. The DOJ has to release all the files, and we have right now a process in the courts that's moving forward, public pressure from the public. We have whistleblowers that we know are ready and some who've already reached out. The files are going to get released, whether Donald Trump and Pam Bondi want them to or not.
Congressman, let me ask you about Ghislaine Maxwell. I believe she's supposed to be deposed by the Oversight Committee February 9th. Talk to us about what you plan on learning from her and how that is going to play out. What do you think she has to offer in terms of information that has not come to light yet? And do you think you'll get an honest answer from her, given the fact that there's been some speculation she's been given a sweetheart deal, being moved to a less secure prison, to kind of speak favorably about any connections, potential connections between or allegations between the president and Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I think first, I think it's important to uplift something the survivors have been saying since Ghislaine Maxwell got moved. Disgusting, shameful, and corrupt. I mean, the survivors are out there and they've been pretty strong. Why was Ghislaine Maxwell, who also trafficked and abused women herself, moved to a less secure facility? Why was she getting secret visits? Why was she talking to Todd Blanche on her own? I mean, it's so corrupt, and I think the American people can see that. Look, Ghislaine Maxwell's a known liar, and there's no question about that. We want her to testify. We want her to answer questions. We've also got to be very thoughtful and careful about what she says. I think clearly the Donald Trump Department of Justice has been providing Ghislaine Maxwell with an easier path, a less secure facility, with no explanation, by the way, why she was moved. So we'll see if she actually meets the deadline for us and for her to come in, what she chooses to say or not say, whether she chooses or tries to plead the fifth. And the only reason why she's coming in is because we've been pressuring Republicans. We've been forcing them to do the right thing. So let's see what she says. We have a lot of questions, but most importantly, we need answers and what she knows about the men that raped and abused all of these women and girls.
Jelani, what did you make of Todd Blanche's posturing during that presser? I thought it was very interesting because while he was saying, trying to say that the administration has had the backs, or the DOJ has had the backs of the victims, he also was sort of positioning himself as a victim, actually, like that it is unfair for people to have accused them of, sort of coordinating too closely with the White House on all of this. He seemed incensed at points. What did you make of that?
So I can tell you the thing that stood out to me, which actually was not that. It was the definitive, this is likely the end of this.
Yeah.
Because they weren't in charge. Let's remember, they never intended to give up the amount of information they gave. That was because of pressure that came from their own ranks and people who they couldn't control on their side. And I was like, the influencers, the podcasters, the various people who are in the Republican Party and who are susceptible to these pressures will determine whether or not you were done.
Some led them, like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right.
Others,
Yeah, that whole array of things that I didn't see coming at all. Given how old this story is and how much of this information was available, previously. And so maybe you might think that this is the last dispatch. I certainly really doubt that it will be.
Well, Blanche also seemed to complain that people will never be satisfied. Congressman, I actually want to play you that clip and get your thoughts on it.
We did not protect President Trump. We didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents.
Congressman, what's your response to that? That the appetite for these documents can just never be satisfied, and sounds like that's an unfair condition for this Department of Justice.
I want to remind everyone watching that Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. So Todd Blanche is Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. So let's first put that out on the table. This idea that somehow Mr. Blanche hasn't been protecting Donald Trump, or that the DOJ hasn't been literally from day one trying to hide the release of these files is laughable. And what's important is that I think the American public, I mean, everyone knows this. I mean, even Republicans now and folks across this country, they understand that Donald Trump is leading a White House cover-up on the Epstein file. So that's clear. And as far as when we'll be satisfied, we won't be satisfied until we get the names of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators and the names of the men who were protected and raped and abused children and girls. And until that happens, and until the survivors get justice, no, we will not be satisfied. We're going to continue to fight. We're going to get the Epstein files released, and then we're going to be sure that all of those men are held accountable, including those that are right now involved in a cover-up at the White House.
Congressman, what do you expect is going to happen come Monday with this funding fight? We have learned Speaker Jeffries was just on, Leader Jeffries was just on with our colleague Al Sharpton, and basically saying Democrats are not planning to help Speaker Johnson out here, certainly not on a fast-track process. What do you expect to happen?
Well, I mean, I support the leader's position there. I mean, look, I'm a hard no as it relates to the deal that the Senate has laid out. I mean, we shouldn't be giving DHS a penny, not tomorrow, not the next day, not ever, without any type of concessions and without any type of actual negotiation about the terror that ICE and DHS right now is engaged with across the country. And so I think that Leader Jeffries is right. I don't think Mike Johnson should expect votes from us and from our caucus. And we've got to hold really strong on our demands here. This is a moment where we have something to actually negotiate. We have something, and we have the ability to stand tough. And so I'm hopeful that's a position that we take, and that's certainly what we should communicate to Leader Schumer in the next weeks ahead.